Hygiene is super important in sex work, which is why we've partnered with Hero Soap Company, all natural soaps with no chemicals, dyes, fragrances, or parabens, which the FDA cites for being found in breast cancer biopsy and causes male reproductive problems. Hero Soap Company is veteran-owned and operated, handmade in Arizona in the beautiful USA. Subscribe for a monthly delivery of soap straight to your door every month, and for every bar purchase in a subscription, we match and send the troops a peppermint cool soap to tingle their nuts for the first time during deployment. Use my code SIA at checkout for 10% off. Let freedom clean. Hey guys, welcome back to Strip by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, naked people, and all the peeps in between. I'm your host, Steph Sia, which I have now started reintroducing because for a while I just go into it and be like, who the fuck is that? Who are you? But yes, hello, my name is Steph. We have a great guest on today by the name of Hamid Raid. Say hello.
Hello.
So excited to have you on. Oh my gosh. So funny how we met. Basically, it was my friend's last day at work and we were fucking around the work computer. And he was like, oh, there's this really hot, like, gay porn star or something that you have to check out. And then he shows me his Instagram, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, very hot indeed, yeah. And he's like, you should have him on your podcast. I'm like, is he based in Vancouver? And he's like, yeah, reach out to him. So I did.
I'm blushing. You can't see it, but I'm blushing.
That's exactly how the story went. So I reached out, and then now, like, we met for coffee. You seem to be a super cool dude. We both like hipster coffee shops.
Total cafe gay all the way.
I love it. And the fact that, like, you're the first gay on the show.
Yeah.
Yay, which is going to be awesome. It's so great to have that representation. But I'm babbling too much, so why don't you take the reins? Who are you, Hamid Raid? Define what you do in your own words, in your own terms.
Okay. I am an escort / adult entertainer. Been in the biz for a little over 3 years now, actually. I can't believe that.
Time flies.
Yeah, it really does. And outside of that, I love to write, and I'm actually planning on going back into school in psychology. So that's also really exciting. That's kind of my real pie in the sky dream that is actually going to happen.
Very cool.
So, yeah, I feel like that's everything. That's me in a nutshell.
You in a nutshell. Amazing. So escorting.
Yes.
So you've been in the biz for about 3 years now. What the heck?
Yes, yeah. I joined the platform Rentmen. I think it was Rent Boy when I joined, and it's now Rentmen, and it's run out of Europe.
Oh.
And so I joined that. Put up an ad. It's a great platform because they do all of the promotion for you in a sense, and got messages almost from day one, and it's kind of been a steady stream ever since.
Oh my gosh!
Really grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think a few months into that, I got contacted by a porn studio that shoots out of Portland, actually, and they said that they'd like to interview me on Skype and see if I have the vibe,
What is the vibe? Explain what the vibe is, quote unquote.
Can you pose with your ass pouting, Do you have the look in your eyes that conveys desire and passion? I don't know. It was like...
I feel that's exactly what they asked you.
No, but they did take a few screenshots of me during the Skype interview, so that was interesting, with my clothes on and with my clothes off. And basically after that I went out to Portland, and they met me in person, and we ended up shooting a couple scenes on that trip alone, and 5 more scenes after that on a subsequent trip. So
oh my gosh, yeah. What? Yeah. Okay, this is crazy. So before we get into all the sex work and all the fun, juicy things, Tell me about like where you grew up, where you come from, that kind of route. Because I think you are Lebanese, was it?
Yes, I'm ethnically Syrian Lebanese, born and raised in Abu Dhabi.
Right.
Which, you know, if you've watched Sex and the City 2, you know where that is. I think
That's right, they did go to Abu Dhabi. Oh my god.
I think it put Abu Dhabi on the map. But yeah, it's a city southwest of Dubai. It was a really sleepy town when I was growing up, when I was really young. It was basically a desert city with a couple supermarkets.
Oh, really?
And maybe like one mall. And now it's like this bustling metropolis.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I grew up there, and it was an interesting upbringing, you know.
Interesting how? Explain.
So it's an Islamic region, right? So there's a lot of emphasis on Islamic morality, and the sexes are segregated. So boys and girls aren't allowed to mingle unless they're married or related, obviously. But yeah, it's frowned upon to mingle with the opposite sex, and so it was really challenging. Basically, when I came of age, I couldn't talk to the opposite sex without sort of getting the frowns of people and being told off and whatnot, and so I was forced to hang out with other guys, and I was a more effeminate boy growing up, and so I didn't really jive well with the guys. I always wanted to be friends with the girls, and so that was a little challenging.
Yeah, that'd be difficult to do though. So I guess like in school, are the classes segregated that way, or like?
In some schools, yes.
Oh, wow.
I went to a school that was really, really small. It was a private school that was so tiny that they had to merge the guys with the girls. But, you know, even then, the girls kind of stuck to themselves and the guys did their own thing. So it was really, really strange, sort of beginning to feel feelings for guys, but knowing that those feelings weren't necessarily morally correct.
Right.
And,
When did you start to develop those feelings? Do you remember? Like, at what age approximately?
You know, when I was really, really young, I always, I think, identified with female characters in cartoons because they always got the guy, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess when I started coming of age, when I went through puberty and whatnot, I started to notice, you're going to laugh at this. So I started to notice boys' belly buttons.
What are belly buttons?
So I have a theory about this. So
okay.
A lot of boys in the Middle East wear undershirts under their clothing,
like a tank top or something like
a tank top,
that,
and they tuck it in, and I think it's because, you know, when you go out into the heat, you sweat a lot, and then you come inside and everything is air conditioned, and so the old housewives' tale is that, you know, if you wear an undershirt, then you at least protect yourself against catching a cold or whatever.
Right. They have that in the Philippines, I think, too.
Oh, yeah?
They wear, like, undershirts as well, yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing there. But so whenever I came in contact with a guy who wasn't wearing an undershirt, or his shirt lifted because he was doing a handstand or playing sports or whatever, you know, I was mesmerized by the sight of that.
Wow.
And I started chasing some of the boys in my class and like pinning them to walls and lifting their shirts just to get a quick peek, and it was all very perverse in my mind. But now thinking about it, it's so innocent, and
it is very innocent. It's very cute. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was like my first kind of obsession, and one day I remember even telling my dad, you know, don't you think boys' belly buttons or boys' stomachs are cute? And his face kind of went white.
Oh no.
And that was when I realized, okay, maybe this isn't like a good feeling to have, you know?
Yeah, like maybe this isn't a good conversation to have, like this isn't a normal thing.
Exactly. But the thing is that there is no notion of homosexuality in the UAE because so much information is censored. Like, oh my God. So this is going to come across as really, really strange. But like, so every like movie poster coming out of the West that we saw in the theaters or wherever, they were doctored so that women in skimpy clothing were wearing like long sleeved shirts and like, full on skirts, and like it was
Oh wow! So
like,
they like photoshopped it.
They photoshopped it to make sure that it wasn't too risque. We would get books, even anatomy books, that were kind of blotted out with black marker, because everything went through the Ministry of like Information and Culture, I think it was called, and they would just like make sure that any kind of skin was like removed, any exposed skin, and so it was really, everything was
super censored.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super strange.
So, and then on top of that, the telecommunication companies would just censor any website that had any kind of sex. So pornography was all censored,
Right.
Anything that spoke out against the government was all censored.
Oh, wow.
So, like, I had no idea growing up that there was such a thing as being gay.
Because it didn't exist in that world.
It just didn't exist.
Right. That's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. And the first time I realized that you can be gay was actually when I switched from the private school I was in to a high school that was an international American school.
Okay.
And suddenly we were getting everything American, American curriculum. All the boys and girls were able to mingle fine. They did sports together.
Wow.
And it was such a huge culture shock.
I was going to say, like that must have shocked your system to be like, this is frowned upon. This is not allowed. And for all of a sudden to be like, okay, you guys play together, like, here you go.
It felt like I stepped into the Twilight Zone the first time I walked through I remember we were doing an orientation and I saw girls and guys just like goofing off together, and I thought to myself, are we still in Abu Dhabi? It just didn't feel like the same place anymore. And so the funny thing that happened was in grade 10, for my global studies class, I get assigned this project, and I'm the only one who's assigned a project in gay rights.
Oh.
And how those developed in the States and the Stonewall riots and all of that.
Iconic. I minored in gender studies, so
yeah. Perfect. So yeah, it's right up your alley.
Yes.
So I was assigned this project that no one else was for some reason, and I went online to Google, gay rights, and what that is.
And you had no idea.
I had no idea.
Oh my god.
I was literally, I picked something out of a hat.
Oh my god.
And it turned out to be gay rights. And
meant to be.
Meant to be.
Fate? Really or was it rigged?
Something, yeah, I don't know. But God really wanted me to be gay, I think. So I went online, and the funny thing about the internet is that the only way you can get any gay content, images and whatnot, is by typing something into Google Images. All the thumbnails appear as they would here, but you clicked on a link or the image and it redirected you to this blocked site in the Middle East. I didn't know, of course, to search for gay blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
But I did into Google Images just to find some pictures for my poster.
Oh my god.
And the first thing that comes up are these really funny and beautiful, like, gay manga pornography images. And
oh my god.
I mean, they're just
like
like
hentai.
Yeah, just like monsters going at it.
Those monsters, like tentacles and shit. Robots and all that shit I've seen.
Just ripping through their clothing, I was stunned, but I was like also just like mesmerized, and I knew that I had hit upon something that would be my life. I remember I was so shocked, and like, to me, it didn't seem wrong necessarily, because my project was about this in my mind, I even called my brother into the office where the family computer was. It was in my dad's office.
Yeah.
I called him in.
God.
My dad wasn't there, thank God.
Oh my god. I'm freaking out right now.
I called him in, and he's 4 years younger, and I'm like, look at this, isn't this amazing? And he's like, ew! And he just runs out. Clue number 2, that what I'm into is not okay. So yeah, and started starting from that moment, I just became mesmerized by porn. I started trying to find any links that would go back to a site that somehow had managed to slip through the cracks.
Were you successful?
I was.
You were?
I was. There was the odd couple of sites that, you know, they had like little teasers of pornography, and I would replay those like 15-second teasers like again and again
like
and again.
On a
just
loop.
like on a loop. Yeah. Yeah.
So at that point, did you realize, like, did you know what you were feeling at that moment, or just like, or you were just still confused?
I knew that I should be looking at the women in porn, but I was looking at the men. And I knew that eventually, you know, I would have to come to terms with either this was who I was, or I had to find a way to change it. So
Right.
at that point in time...
This is around when you were a teenager?
Yeah, so I'm talking about like 15, 16, you know. At this point, I'm starting to think to myself, you know, maybe because I've been stuck mingling with just the guys, I developed along the way feelings for men instead of women.
Right.
And
That's like a pretty reasonable theory.
right? And I thought that eventually when I got the chance to hang out with more chicks, I developed feelings for them, you know? Yeah. Didn't quite happen.
Fair enough.
I love the
Teenager
chicks,
thinking.
but not in the
Not
same
like
way.
that,
Yeah.
That's so crazy. So when did you come out then? Did you come out?
I did come out, and that was also not a given for a really long time. But at the age of 21,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I
my
made this pact with
gosh.
myself that I would not engage in any sort of relations with another man, be it sexual, romantic, whatever, until I could come out to my family, because I didn't want to drag anyone else back into the closet with me.
Right.
So at 21, I was getting really fucking horny. And I was like, okay, this has to happen
Yeah.
sometime soon.
Fair enough.
And with my family, it's a little complicated because they're kind of liberal, but also kind of not. My mom was a devout Muslim for a really long time. She prayed 5 times a day.
Oh, wow.
Until we moved to Canada, and then that started to fall by the wayside.
And then no longer.
Bad Muslim. But she was also a nurse, so like the body didn't really scare her. Like she actually put a whole bunch of anatomy books in our bookcase when we were young, so that we could reach up and pick them out and look through them. Yeah.
Interesting.
So she definitely wasn't scared about talking about sex. My dad, on the other hand,
Yeah.
Syrian man, really traditional, but also an atheist.
Oh.
So
Oh, wow.
so
Okay.
I really didn't know which way they were going to lean. And when I was in my teens, the family would gather around to watch soaps, and every so often a gay storyline would come up, and both my mom and dad would get livid at the television whenever a gay person came on, and I thought to myself, fuck, I'm screwed.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I really didn't know how they were going to take it. But at the same time, you know, growing up, I wasn't discouraged from playing with dolls. I used to pretend to be the Disney princesses, you know, and I would wear like pants over my head and pretend it was my long flowing hair.
I love that. That's so cute.
And they encouraged that. So,
Yeah.
you know, I was like 50-50. It could go either way. They might like disown me completely.
Totally.
Or I can be myself and everything will go hunky-dory, you know, who knows?
No pressure.
Exactly. So I think this one trip, so we were in Vancouver at this point. My mom, my brother, and I went on a trip to Montreal
Ooh, love
for the
Montreal.
summer. I know.
So great.
And we spent all day together. We somehow managed to make our way to a seance of some kind.
Okay.
Where this medium was talking to a whole group of people and kind of like standing by certain members of the audience and channeling messages for them. I don't know. I still to this day don't remember how we happened upon this.
Okay.
But we were in the audience. This guy, this medium, he approaches my row
Oh my gosh.
and he says, someone in this row is scared to be who they really are. And
Oh my god!
and I want you to know that if you own who you are, you will be fine. You will be accepted.
Oh my gosh, that is so wild! Oh my god!
And obviously, because we're so narcissistic, we think it's all about us.
Totally.
Right?
Everyone in the room is like, it's me.
But later that night, my mom, my brother, and I were seated in a circle just talking about life and getting really deep and emotional. And for some reason, it occurred to me this was the moment. And the words were like bubbling up, so I came out with it and I said, you know, Mom, I have not been myself this whole time. And she was like, yeah, I know. And I said, no, you don't know who I really am. I've been keeping that a secret. And she said, yeah, I know. And I'm like, no, you don't get it.
You don't know.
I think I'm into guys. And she said, yeah, I know. Like,
Moms always know.
They always do, I think, yeah. And,
oh, wow.
And she was like, and it's okay. And
wow.
My brother's jaw dropped. And he said, my life has changed forever. And I'm like, bitch, your life?
Bitch, this is about you. Who invited you to this conversation?
But yeah, I kind of, like, that's all that was said that night. I went to sleep.
Wow.
Well, I tried to go to sleep, but I was, wide-eyed all night. And the next morning, like, no one was talking about it. I kind of felt like I'd imagined the whole thing. But then my mom sat me down at lunch, and we were out at this mall, and she pointed out a couple guys that were passing by, and she said, well, is this guy your type?
Oh,
and I was
so
like,
cute.
What? Like, am I having this conversation with my mom right now? I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
So she was amazing.
Super supportive. That's awesome.
Super, super supportive. And then 3 years later, she ended up coming out to me.
What? What? Dude, I was not expecting this part. Oh my gosh. What?
Yeah, so...
Oh my god!
Yeah, so she had her own experiences with... Well, an experience with a woman, and...
Oh my gosh.
And it was a deep relationship that she had with this person, and it wasn't until I came out to her that she even considered maybe that one day she could tell me.
Yeah,
so
that's so powerful.
I was really proud of her in that moment. When she told me about it, she prefaced it by saying, I'm a really bad person, just so you know. And when she told me, I was like, oh my god, I just love you so much more now.
Right?
So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
So nice for you to share that bond that you might not have ever had.
Oh yeah, definitely. Right? And ever since I came out to the people in my life, like, authenticity is so important, because I can see that relationships run so much deeper when you are showing up fully as yourself.
Sure.
Not that it's a solution for everyone, but I definitely am happy that I felt I could come out to my family, and that they responded the way that they did. My dad was... I
was going to ask about your dad. What about your dad? Because he seems like really like super traditional, conservative, stern.
Yeah.
Like, his face went white and you made that comment and it's like, I'm scared. Oh.
So I didn't pull up the nerve to come out to my dad until I did like a life enhancement seminar. I don't know if you're familiar with Landmark. Landmark Forum.
Yes, I am familiar with Landmark.
Yeah, so I think that the enthusiasm of that group kind of like pushed me to do it, and I'm so grateful for that. I have my bones to pick with the Landmark Forum, but they at least managed to do that. And when I came out to my dad, I called him actually from the hallway outside the seminar hall.
Oh my gosh.
And he immediately said, get out of that place right now.
Oh my.
And I said, Dad, it's not about where I am.
Yeah, no.
I've been dealing with this for a while, and I need you to listen to me. But later that night, I sat across from him and I explained it to him, and he went all teary-eyed for a moment, and then he turned to me and he said, I love you. And that meant the world to me.
This makes me so happy to hear this. Seriously.
Things got a little more complicated afterwards. Like he asked me to promise him to, find a woman and marry her and all of this stuff. So I had to kind of like go back into the closet briefly before finally telling him, look, I can't really make that promise to you. And we didn't talk for a bit, but he's finally come to terms with all of it. I tell him about my relationships now, and
that's good. It's progress.
He asks me about the people that I'm with. So
and it's nice that he's asking you because it sounds like he wants to be involved.
More so.
Somewhat. In his own kind of way.
Yeah, my dad.
Parents.
Yeah.
Parents.
Yeah, my dad likes to live in constant denial for the most part, but he does every once in a while, check in and make that effort. So. I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy, and it's really important too when you're coming out, because we had another coming out story too with Demi Mundane's episode when she came out as trans, and you kind of had to be picky, choosy sometimes, depending on your situation.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice to just try to be open and own who you are, but sometimes in those circles, like in her situation, like she was writing for I think Vice or something, and she was documenting her whole like transition period, and not everyone wants to hear that, unfortunately. And it can be really scary too. So I think you made like a really great way of going about it.
Yeah, in my situation, my family was here. My parents had moved to Canada with me, and so I felt like I could come out to them, and if they want to go and seek resources and find out more about my sexuality, then they could do so. They could talk to people. A lot of people, their family is back home.
Right.
They're quite isolated. They wouldn't know where to turn. They wouldn't have, people to talk to about this. This sort of stuff. So they'd be really left on their own with this knowledge, right?
Super isolated in that situation, right?
Yeah.
So I guess like in your situation is definitely a lot better than certain cases, unfortunately.
Yeah. Right? Unfortunately,
Yeah, you're super lucky. I'm so happy to hear that. It makes me so happy.
It made me really happy. I can't tell you. I mean, it's a game changer when you come out, when you own who you are. I mean, my life just catapulted forward after that. Yeah.
You can finally be your authentic self, and you don't have to hide anymore.
Yeah.
And stuff, and
I started getting into relationships, making all the dumb mistakes that you're supposed to.
Tell me about your relationships. How's that? Like, questionable.
So I got married really young.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I got married at 22.
Oh my gosh.
Only 1 year after coming out.
Baby life.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And I think part of that was me rebelling against, my origins and
like culture.
The culture, because
religion.
you can't marry a member of the same sex back home. So for me, I think I was more in love with the idea of being married to another man than I was necessarily in love with the man I was marrying.
Oh my gosh! Oh wow!
At the time, frankly, I also I did a little bit of dating, and then I met this man who was a Vancouverite, a white man, and to me, I felt like I didn't deserve to be with a white man, because back in the Middle East, white culture is really glorified,
Right, it's like up on a pedestal.
It really is. So, when I met this guy, to me, I should worship the ground he walks on, and the fact that he chose me felt really, really important. And so I kind of overlooked some things and dove in when maybe I should have just like waited things out. And
yeah, because it can't be healthy too, right?
Yeah. So I was definitely marrying an illusion more than, who this person really was.
Right.
He served me in a lot of ways, but also really, really set me back in a lot of ways. And so...
Set you back how?
He really chipped at my self-concept. So, okay, he isolated me from my family, my friends.
No.
He wanted me to make sure that he was my only lifeline.
So it's super mentally abusive.
Yeah. I ended up working with him, for him, at his company. And
oh my gosh.
And he managed to convince me that I was virtually unemployable without him. So a lot of
Whoa.
Emotional...
We share a very similar story. I will tell you off the air. Whoa. Oh my God.
So...
That's so crazy.
And when you're in it, you don't really see it. It's only when you leave that you realize, oh my God.
Brainwashed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
What I could tell was that I felt suffocated. he was fiercely monogamous as well, really, really jealous. And so he barely let me leave the house without like
guilt tripping you.
Guilt tripping and
making you feel bad. Yeah.
So
we're dating the same person? Like
maybe we'll exchange notes later.
Yeah. Seriously. Gosh, that's awful.
Yeah.
That's truly awful. What was the outcome of that? Are you guys still together? Or?
No, we divorced. 4 years into that relationship, I realized that he wasn't going to change, and that really I shouldn't want my partner to change. You know, I should love him exactly as he is, and if exactly who he is isn't doing it for me, then I need to move on. And
absolutely.
And so I got the heck out of Dodge.
Did he know about your sex like work?
I wasn't in sex work at the time.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
No. All I did was work for him in a hospitality. Actually, it was a customer service training company, mostly geared towards hospitality. And so what I'm doing now is almost the antithesis of that. Yes. Customer service is always important, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
But I don't know, all the propriety around hospitality, that's kind of gone out the window.
So after that, so how did you get into sex work? Was that like a conscious decision that you wanted to make, or was that something you always wanted to do, or?
I'll tell you this, definitely when I was that little kid in my dad's office coming upon all these pornos of these hot
little clips and stuff,
these hot porn stars, I thought to myself, wow, these people are like pioneers. They're like starting the sexual revolution, because where I was, that just did not happen.
Yeah, that did not exist.
No. So to me, they were like brave avant-garde, just, breaking every barrier, and I wanted to be somehow involved in that. I didn't know how at that point in time.
Okay.
I definitely started developing exhibitionistic tendencies.
Don't we all?
You kind of have to in this line of work.
Yeah.
But definitely. Oh yeah, total attention hog.
It helps.
For sure, yeah. Both my biggest strength and my Achilles heel, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so like even, in coming out and, when I first moved to Vancouver, all the porn that was suddenly available to me, oh my God, I'm pretty sure I locked myself away in my bedroom for like 10 hours straight, just going through it all. I was mesmerized.
Gotta catch up.
Yeah, exactly, make up for lost time, right? But yeah, so even then I started going on to Xtube and Pornhub and things like that, and thinking to myself, well, I could start my own account maybe someday.
Yeah.
And, I uploaded a few videos here and there, but didn't make anything serious of it. Mm-hmm. When I left my ex, I wanted to go into something completely different. Mm-hmm. I thought to myself, what would be the job that if I took it when I was with him, he would just be aghast.
And this was it.
So I applied actually to this organization called the Cuddlery, which
is that the cuddle?
It's like a cuddle
service.
Yeah, it's a cuddle service.
I remember
exactly.
This was big a few years ago.
Yeah. It has chapters I think out of Edmonton and Toronto and one here.
The Cuddlery. Okay, cute.
Yeah. And I liked it because it promised a sense of connection and intimacy to people without the sexual nature component, which I wasn't sure I was ready to dip my toes into just yet. Mm-hmm. But when I applied and I was going through the training, they didn't frown upon us hinting maybe at the fact that we could take things in a sexual direction, always towards the end of a session. Just to procure repeat customers. Yeah.
Interesting.
And yet we weren't allowed to take things in that direction while still retaining the customers for the Cuddlery. So I decided, if things are moving that way anyway, it would seem strange to prematurely cut things off, and maybe I should just go for it. In the meantime, I met someone new, and this person is really, really pro-sex, and and he was intrigued by this possibility of me getting into into escorting, and he said, I don't know how I feel about like sex being monetized necessarily, but I reassured him that it's not typical sex. It's like it's sex that is catering towards the other person. Like we're definitely channeling some kind of positive vibes towards our clients, and it's not necessarily a two-way thing.
Right.
Where in sex, hopefully we're both getting something out of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the longest standing profession,
Yeah,
and
sure
and I
is.
think I think there's a reason for that, and now more than ever, being connected is so difficult, and so I told him that I feel like I want to access people who normally would not be able to get intimacy, and build them up, with positive vibes, provide that listening ear for them if they need it, and be a support in that sense.
Yeah.
So he was on board. I
Yay.
set up a profile on Rentman, and off it went.
So now we're back here again. So, oh my
here,
gosh, damn.
Yeah.
So that's quite a story. And then you've been doing that ever since,
I've been doing that ever since.
along with some porn as well.
Along with some porn, more recently, I've gone into the fan pages. So I started my own OnlyFans account.
Yay!
As
We'll
well
plug
as,
that later.
also just for fans.
Yes.
So on those two for now, and I'm really liking it because I feel like those platforms really democratize porn, and people of all body types and genders and sexualities and abilities, they put their stuff up, they express their sexuality, and people will gravitate towards that.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
I think it's great too, because like you have the agency to do whatever you want, publish whatever content you want to put on there, right?
Exactly.
No matter who you are, what your background is, and stuff too. So
And background does get in the way sometimes.
Tell me about that.
I think that as a Middle Eastern man, there are certain preconceived notions that people can have about me.
Like what?
So I think that the preconception is that as an Arab man, I'm going to be more of your beastly, brutish, top kind of a guy, and
Very stereotypical.
very, very machoistic. Because we are hairier, we're darker, they assume that,
Right. Beastly, savage, barbaric.
Exactly.
Yeah, those.
Exactly.
Okay, totally get it.
And I'm mostly a bottom, so that I don't really fit into that category as well as, as most studios would want me to. So for the studio that I have worked for so far, they definitely wanted to cast me in more of a top role, and so that's.
Is it challenging?
Sometimes it is, because you have to really be into it and forget you're on camera and and perform, right? So so that's one aspect that kind of chaps at my ass sometimes.
Does it ever work in your favor though?
I think it does, only in the sense that I am already eroticized as an Arab man, and so they assume I'm going to be this randy, horny, guy, which I am,
Don't get me wrong.
So, and definitely there are niches that I fit within, the whole bear, I guess burly, kind of persona. That is, I fit that, so I'm lucky in that way. But
right.
yeah, it's more when I want to express my feminine side that I feel like, and maybe this is all internal too, because I'm sure have some internalized shame about being effeminate or whatnot. So, but I do sense that being sensitive or soft or gentle isn't as welcomed from an Arab man. It's not expected.
Right.
So
they're non-typical features.
yeah,
Right.
that's according to them. I mean,
according to their societal norms.
Yes. I mean, from what I can tell, Arab men can be the most gushy and the sweetest and the most sensitive. But yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about that, like in terms of like how queer men in the Middle East would perceive you?
So I think that I'm very polarizing for a lot of gay men in the Middle East. There are some people that, you know, like they put me up on this pedestal because I'm like in porn, and it is hard to find Arab men in porn.
Very difficult.
So
super niche. Super niche.
And that works in my favor.
I was gonna say, bank on that, honey.
Yeah, exactly. And so they, you know, I'm a porn star, you know, this like larger than life figure to them, for some. And then for other people, I think that I may be shunned because, you know, people in the sex industry, maybe they're more promiscuous, maybe they're dirtier, quote unquote.
Right.
So like, you know,
but it always comes with that stigma and that
shame,
right?
all that buried down shame.
Yeah. In terms of like the stigma and the shame, like, do you have any cultural baggage that you carry with you as well?
I work really hard to eliminate most cultural baggage, but from time to time it does come up. Definitely, I sometimes come up against bottom shame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where I've only, up until recently, I couldn't fully say that I'm a bottom. Like I always had to be verse, or before that it was top verse, you know. But now I'm more fully claiming that I am a bottom.
Good.
And it really helps to just like put that out there, and then you just get more of what you want. And, and the kinds of experiences that really get your juices going, right?
Totally.
So even in my line of work, you know, now I put on my profile that I am a bottom. So and a lot of my self-shot porn is of me bottoming these days. So, and I'm also trying really hard to like include a lot more passion, a lot of kissing, because those sorts of things aren't really associated with the Arab man.
Right.
You know, it's usually more like rough, aggressive. Yeah,
totally.
You know, the whole rapist fantasy.
Yeah,
so
that's a thing.
Yeah.
Is that a thing in gay culture too?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's absolutely a thing in gay culture.
It's like, I'm here for it, for me. But anyways, it's a thing in gay culture too. Cool. I did not know that.
But yeah, so
Fascinating.
I do feel sometimes like I can't be more feminine. Recently I did this like dance class. It was like a secret dance workshop where we were guided to just move our bodies to the beats that they were playing and just kind of be intuitive about it. And I wanted to shake my hips and get down and grungy, but I felt myself sort of like hold myself in and so definitely there are certain moves I consider to be feminine that I should not be going anywhere near, you know? And so, like, I'm constantly battling that. I was told growing up that I should act like a man, you know?
Right.
And so...
whatever that means.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I fight that all the time.
Yeah, so that's still a thing that's ongoing then.
Very much so. I mean, I'm aware of it, and that's the first step, and I try to push my own boundaries as much as possible, but yeah, every so often it does crop up.
Right. I remember when you met up for coffee, and you're like, oh, like, is there any places for, like, you know, I think you mentioned something about male go-go dancing and stuff, and you maybe wanting to experiment with that, or just...
Down the line, I mean,
yeah.
I'd love to work a pole sometime, you know?
Yeah!
But yeah, there is a bit of a wall that comes up for me when I think about that,
right.
and what I can do around, you know, that kind of dancing, how to still keep it masculine somehow. You know?
Is it important for you to keep it masculine?
I think that what was really interesting about the Sacred Dance Workshop is the instructor had us watch ourselves in the mirror as we danced. And I think I still have a hard time watching myself.
I was going to ask, is it very difficult for you to watch yourself? Because people are very uncomfortable with that.
Yeah. Watching myself, especially if I'm doing something that is a bit more effeminate, really makes my skin crawl still. And that's just my own self-hate.
Yeah. No, seriously. Like, it definitely comes from within. Like, At Tantra, we teach introduction to like exotic movement and for you to get in touch with like your own sensuality and stuff. But all that confidence comes from like inside. I know it sounds super cliche.
No,
but
it all starts in there though. Right?
Yeah.
So
everything starts within there. The shame, everything, stigma, then comfortableness with it. But then once you just tap into it, it's just so powerful.
Yeah.
Come take my class.
I think I have to.
Absolutely. Another thing that I wanted to bring up, you were talking about like volunteer work as a sex worker in our initial conversations. Do you want to speak a bit about that?
Currently, I started up with the Health Initiative for Men, and they placed me in this program called The Corner.
Okay.
That acts as a drop-in center for street-involved sex workers. Mm-hmm. And we provide services and food and referrals to people who are coming off the streets and need a place to sort of like hang their coats and decompress and connect with other people. And so I go once a week.
That's amazing.
And put in some time with those folks, and I'm really, really enjoying it.
That's awesome.
It's really fulfilling, yeah.
We could definitely plug that later too, for sure. That's super awesome. How did you get involved with that though?
I went online and I was just eager to find some way to give back, and I found this and it just seemed so perfect. Mm-hmm. Also, a big draw was that I could just submit a resume that had my background in escorting and sex work. I could put that right on there, and
judgment-free,
and it would work actually in my favor to come with that experience. So
right, because that never happens.
No.
Like, where would you ever? When would that ever be accepted?
I know.
Right.
And to meet other people that I work with there who are so sex positive mm-hmm. and so sex work positive too, like that's been really amazing.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's super fascinating.
You don't find a group of people like that very often.
No, it's a very small circle, especially Vancouver too. So.
I know.
I guess with that, why don't we go into some Q&A?
Sure.
A few questions here. So, are you fearful that some bad people may try to hurt you due to ideological differences? Has it ever been a threat to you?
There hasn't ever been a threat.
Good, knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly.
I would. I don't want you to get hurt.
No, there are some people that will mouth off every once in a while and say that's so disgusting and whatnot. But I figure, if you're watching my stuff, then you already have your foot in the door.
Exactly. It's like, what are you even doing?
Yeah. I'm not really concerned about death threats or anything like that. I mean, I'm very idealistic and optimistic, and I tend to believe that if we show up as ourselves, we inspire others to also come out of their shells and show up as themselves as well. So
for sure,
I'm hoping that I'm putting out positive vibes and those positive vibes come back to me.
Yeah, you'll be receiving that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think so.
I think so too.
It definitely works with our meeting, I think too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just feel like when I met you, I was like, this guy is so great. We get along so well.
Likewise. I'm like, I have to know you more.
Right. Good energy exchange, right? And that's super important, putting that out there in the universe.
Yeah.
So totally. Here's another one. So, do you have to be fit to cam/escort as a male?
Absolutely not.
Right?
Because, everyone has a different fetish, has a different turn on. So I say embrace who you are, fully embody who you are, and there will be a huge following for you. Absolutely.
Right, yeah. And this is coming from a male as well, so that's really interesting to hear. And also, yeah, I completely agree with you on that one.
Even the clients that I meet, a lot of people ask me, how is it that you can show up and seem turned on and go through with an escorting appointment when you're not really feeling the guy that you're playing with?
Good question.
To me, there's always something sexy about you if you are present and you're owning what turns you on. It's very easy to focus in on at least one thing that's really hot.
Totally.
And that goes a long way in
Yeah.
turning a so-so session into a scorching hot session. So
totally.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Even for me, as a dancer, when I'm doing dances or VIPs or dealing with my fetish clients, it's just like, I just get off so much that they're enjoying it that it like turns me on.
Absolutely.
Right?
There's nothing worse than someone who wants to be there but also is scared to reveal who they really are.
Totally.
That's the hardest client for me, actually, is someone who's kind of muted and closed off and has a wall up because they're afraid that they'll, show some side of themselves that will compromise their impression, the impression they're trying to make.
It's like a poker face.
Yeah.
Like, are you doing okay? Can't read minds.
Are you here?
Hello.
Yeah. Exactly. So, like, my advice to this person would be, just show up as yourself, do what turns you on, and people will get turned on by that.
Right.
So.
Good answer. How did you get through the cultural programming and deciding to pursue sex work? So we touched a little bit about this, but if you want to go further into detail. It's a loaded, double-ended question.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, it's a two-part basically. So how did you get through the cultural programming? That's one. And deciding to pursue sex work.
I think a big part of it was having to shed the religion I grew up with. I definitely, even when I was a really young kid, I could tell that some things in Islam just didn't make sense to me. There was a lot of incoherence and a lot of inconsistencies in what we were being taught.
Is it more just hypocritical things, or
not just hypocrisy, but also, and this may totally be the way that it was being taught, because I do think if you go back to scripture, more times than not, there is some wisdom to be gleaned from the religious books. But the way that we were taught things, it was so restrictive. And for instance, we were told that, if you prayed every day, 5 times a day, then it didn't matter what wrongdoing you committed, all your sins would be absolved and you would go to heaven.
Oh, wow.
And yet we were told this other anecdote about this random woman who prayed 5 times a day every day, but then kicked her cat once before she died, and then ended up going to hell.
Oh.
And so things like that were
like,
always coming up, and I had question marks around them, and my teachers couldn't answer them. Mm-hmm. They always just said, oh, the will of God is...
This is just the way it's supposed to be. God's will.
Only God knows best, was the thing that was touted again and again. So I had questions from the beginning, but definitely when I started to figure out who I was and going back to the Quran to see how, gays were received.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hate, a lot of fear, and to me it just didn't make sense that, God would make me this way to test me, to see if I could break this disease, quote unquote, that I had been given, And if God is omniscient, then he already knows how things are going to end up,
Right.
So there were just a whole lot of rational incoherences that I couldn't wrap my head around. Luckily, my aunt was coming into New Age spirituality.
Okay.
So she started doing tarot cards and angel cards. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I don't know what that is. What's that?
It's the same thing as a tarot reading, except that it's channeling directly from the angels, and the messages tend to be more positive, less specific. It's not like you're beware an accident that might befall you in the next few days. It's more like,
oh my God.
you are looked after and things are going to be fine. Turn towards your inner wisdom.
Oh, interesting.
That sort of thing. It's more showing you how to cope with life and how to go within for your answers. So
that's
I really like that. That's a really
interesting perspective. Yeah, instead of just living in fear.
Exactly.
Like how we are nowadays. The whole coronavirus thing. Oh my God. People look at each other like, now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the only thing I have to say, spirituality is the only thing that in times like these keeps me afloat, keeps me positive. Grounded. And for sure. But so from those days, I started doing a bit more reading into spirituality. Science of mind is a kind of way of thinking, which sounds like Scientology, but it's not Scientology.
Big difference, guys.
But so did a whole bunch of courses and seminars, and I've done a whole bunch of research, and I finally found a body of thought that jived with how I felt, that seemed non-judgmental, and I embraced it the way that it was embracing me, and basically that's how I started to come to terms with who I was and shed the baggage from my upbringing. Yeah,
that's incredible. Such a journey. Huge journey.
And it never stops.
I was gonna say, hasn't ended yet, right? I guess the last question here is, I'm not sure if this is possible, but would you be successful in the Middle East doing what you do, or is that too risky? Or, as you said, like, does that still not exist, like porn and all that stuff, and that's still censored and all that?
Funny enough, if you travel on Rentmen, and you see what escorts are available in the Middle East, Dubai is listed as a hub for a lot of escorts.
Oh.
Now, to what extent...
I know that for females, but I'm not sure about for males.
Yeah. No, males are definitely, they're making a killing there, I think. But I think the question about safety is another aspect that I'm not too sure of. I'm hoping to visit Dubai end of this year for Expo 2020.
Ooh, wait, what's Expo 2020?
They're building a whole new campus, and there's all these workshops around innovation and future technology, and when they build in Dubai, they build big. But with the current worldwide crisis, I don't know what's going to happen. But definitely could be a good time to go and see what wild oats I can sow.
You never know, man.
The thing about that would be, I think that you have to be, I imagine, well connected there.
It's still taboo.
It's still taboo. I wouldn't go down without having a bunch of connections that I've made ahead of time that can show me around, because any sort of gay culture is definitely still underground. You have to know the right people who can take you to the right venues. And even then, if you do get hired, I would say, definitely make sure to indicate that you are connected in the city, that if you go missing, that people will notice.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because, any place where shame is still rampant, people, take out their aggression.
They do.
Because that aggression is actually, they want to direct to themselves.
Yeah, it's intrinsic.
But it's just being projected outward. And so...
Oh my gosh, please be careful when you go.
Yeah.
Please be careful.
I intend to be.
I've heard some horror stories about Dubai in terms of sugar babies and escorts there too, about how the sheikhs treat women there. There's a lot of feces involved. That's what I've heard.
Okay.
So, from all the stories that I've heard,
they
like to shit on, like literally shit on women and stuff too. And I'm not sure if that's just a thing or that's just the many stories that I've heard from there. I don't know. Just
another way to degrade women.
Right? Just another way. Great. As if we needed more reasons.
Exactly. That is interesting. Yeah. I would have to tap you for more info on that after, because...
Back when I was really deep in the sugar bowl. But anyways, another story for another time. I have many stories about that. But on that...
Let's end on feces. Why don't we?
Ending on feces. On that note, where can we find you?
So you can go to hamedraid.com. That's HAMEDRAIDD.com. And from there, you'll be redirected to my Instagram, to my Twitter, to my OnlyFans, Just for Fans, and to my Rentmen account.
Everything.
Oh
my God.
All in one place.
Yay. I like that. That's super cool. And we'll plug all the links. I'll go on the website and plug all the links.
Thank you.
And the link down below. And any last words? So much fun having you on.
If I had to say anything, it would be, don't be ashamed of who you are. Who you are is beautiful. Go out there, express it however you can in a safe manner.
Yes, safety is key.
Yeah, and your life will become magical as a result of that. So.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yay! Well, you are a magical human being, so I'm so glad we have met.
Takes one to know one.
Oh, well, We're going to end on that note, guys. Thanks for listening to Strip by Sia. It's Strip by Sia on Instagram. Don't forget to like, rate, review, and subscribe. And if you have any hate mail, if you want to get at me, whatever you want to do, my personal is Sia Steph. And we'll catch you guys in for another episode next Sunday. Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to Stripped by Sia, produced and hosted by Steph Sia, aka Kimchi, music by Ted D, photography